Well, right now we want to talk Battle Creek Public Schools, and Kim Carter, the school superintendent, joins us this morning. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning.
So
Thanks
nice
for having me.
And also, community leader and former city commissioner Dean Newsome is with us. Dean, good morning. Nice to see you.
Tim, great to see you again.
Yep. It's certainly an interesting time in the education biz, I guess. First of all, the school shootings and, all of that stuff. And then flu. I mean, how's the Battle Creek Public Schools been doing with the flu epidemic?
We had a short period where we had a lot of students and staff that were sick, and so we are hoping that they have all had the time to recuperate, and it looks like our schools are back up and running. So,
well, that's good, because I imagine you had a few substitutes in there, and, thank heavens you didn't do the head count from the state on any of those days, huh?
Exactly. So,
man, that's got to be tough to run. It's tough to run any business, school, whatever, when we have these kind of things. So let's hope we turn the corner on it, knock on wood. I hope I don't jinx myself here. But we've been lucky here. Wanted to ask you about the school security question. Every school's talking about it now. What has the discussion been in the Battle Creek Public Schools?
I think, we are... lucky enough to have a lot of security measures in place that has been part of our regular operating procedures. So that includes that all of our schools have access buzzers, so that visitors must be buzzed into our schools. We also have breezeways that allow us to make sure that there's some separation between those coming through the doors, and an opportunity to ensure that we have monitored all guests that are arriving at our schools. We also have spent a lot of funding on cameras for safety in our schools, and making sure that our staff has access to telephones and things in case of emergency. So I feel like we are very well equipped, and will continue to review and make adjustments as needed.
Have there been any discussions about, actually with the teachers and students of, heaven forbid, if something happens, here is what we're going to do, or are we not that far yet, or what?
Well, that has been an ongoing conversation across the years, and so we feel like we are very prepared, because we make sure that all of our schools go through active shooter training annually, and we will again go through that in the beginning of next year as well. And so we want to make sure that we have thought about everything in terms of keeping all of our students and staff safe.
That's great. The big question at hand right now for the school, the Battle Creek Public Schools, and the citizens who live within that district is, of course, funding the millage. We've got an election coming up in May, and, what are we asking for? Dean?
Well, right. The election is May 8th, and we are asking to renew the current millage, which is at 18 mills, for the operating fund, the non-homestead operating fund, and 2 mills for the sinking fund. The operating fund pays for salaries, supplies, and that sort of thing, equipment. The sinking fund pays for maintenance to the building. So if you're a homeowner like I am, you know that as homes get older, they need to be repaired. And so you want to plan for those rather than waiting for them to actually break. So that's what the sinking fund pays for.
Great. And again, we just can't say it enough. They're not asking for more money in Battle Creek Public Schools. We're just asking for the funding to stay right where it is right now.
Exactly. And there are actually 2 imperatives. In order to receive state per pupil funding, we have to have a non-homestead operating millage. So that it's one begets the other. The other thing is, what we're asking to do that is a little bit different is to extend the millage to 10 years rather than 5. That allows the school district to plan much better, and on the upside, it safeguards against increases for those who pay the millage.
Well, and we've had Kim in here before. I know one of the big things that we're trying to do is plan. We're trying to look out ahead instead of down at our feet. And try, obviously you have a lot of things to deal with day in and day out. The grant that came through gives you a little breathing room on that and really lets you look out a little bit more and plan. So that makes a lot of sense to try and lock this in for 10 years.
Yes, and we want to make sure that our community understands that this is about securing funding to ensure that our students have access to the facilities that they deserve. They deserve to be in facilities that are well maintained and that allow them to focus on the teaching and learning that's occurring in the schools. We have one building that is over 100 years old, and so you can imagine it takes funding to ensure that that stays in compliance and safe for our students.
That would be Verona Elementary, right?
Correct.
Built in 1915, and it needs work, right? It needs a couple things.
It does. And so to Dean's point, just like homeowners, there are roofs that have to be replaced. We need to replace windows at times. We want to make sure that those facilities and structures are well maintained so that students can focus.
Yeah. My wife went to Verona Elementary, and she whines every once in a while about how hot it was in there. And, that's an issue, the air conditioning, boilers, that kind of stuff. An old building like that's going to need upgrades. And, this is one of our facilities. We need, and the other thing, too, is we felt it here in our building. We recently had some new carpeting put in here. And it has charged everybody. It's got everybody in a more positive mood. It's amazing. I didn't even think it would be that way because it's sort of like one of those memos you stick on the wall. After a while, it's invisible. You get so used to it every day, you don't even think about it. And then something comes along, somebody changes the memo or moves it. Oh, what's that? I see it now. Same thing with kids in education. You give them, a couple of new building improvements. All of a sudden, their attitude's going to get better. Same with the teachers, right?
Absolutely. It lifts your spirits when you have structural changes that add to the culture and climate of the building.
And I think another part of that, too, is, the students are not dumb. They know stuff, and they see if a community supports them or not. And if all of a sudden the community says, yeah, well, we're going to do this renewal for 10 years because we are committed to, helping keep our school strong and even better, the kids know that.
And, that's what's great about Battle Creek. Battle Creek really supports its schools and wraps its arms around the children that we are serving. And so we're just looking to continue that support and hopefully maintain the level of funding that we have been receiving over the years.
When we talk about, you said 18 mills, what does this translate into how much the average homeowner pays?
So if you have a home, and it's valued at $50,000 in the state assessment, you'll pay about $900 a year. You'll continue to pay that for the operating millage. And then for the sinking fund, it'll be about $100 a year. So
$1,000 a year, and you're paying that now if you have a $50,000 home.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and so, you have to stop and think, is this something, when you want a strong community, what's at the top of your list? Your schools, I would say. Obviously your public safety and, the condition of your downtown and that sort of stuff. But I can't think of anything more important, especially for the future of the community, than its schools.
Well, and our kids are the future. We're really investing in our children, the people who are going to carry on our legacy in this community and for us as a family.
And trying to, tell those kids, hey, you don't need to move away when you graduate. You can stay right here. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And so we're investing in programs, pathway programs to help kids to see something beyond high school so they can stay here, whether it's vocational education, the skilled trades, or college. We're helping them to look beyond high school into the future.
We're talking Battle Creek Public Schools. Superintendent Kim Carter is with us. Also, community leader and former city commissioner Dean Newsome. We'll talk about the May 8th millage election. In fact, a few schools will be doing that. I think Harper Creek has one, I know for sure. But we're talking about not a millage increase, but a millage renewal of 18 mills and a 2 mill building and site sinking fund proposal. Now, these have both been around already for, 6-8 years or something?
Even longer. And so we do this every 5 to 6 years. We come out and ask for a renewal or a change to that. So it's been around for a while. As Dean stated, it's part of the school funding formula.
I think one of the I don't want to say flaws, but one of the unfortunate things about our form of government in our society is we almost never get any say in tax increases, except when it comes to our schools and our local taxes. And then all of a sudden, it's a lot of times the only chance to say no. And so people who may be fed up with paying high state or federal taxes, all of a sudden they say no. And boy, it's probably the area where they probably should say yes more than anything. So this is just going to be a renewal of what you're paying now to try and keep us where we are. But I know what a lot of those same people are thinking right now. They're thinking, well, you got the $51 million from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. Why do you need my tax money?
So I think it's important to note that the $51 million is a grant that was given to the district for specific programs, services, and outcomes for students. And it is over 5 years. So it wasn't $51 million all at once. Mm-hmm. We will receive some payouts over the next 5 years that are really targeted towards an intentional transformation plan. Those things include additional programs for our students that will raise their achievement, additional services in terms of providing them access or the supports they need to access a quality education, supplies for our teachers to ensure that they have the curricular materials that they need to effectively educate students. So very intentional, very targeted, and very specific around program services for students.
Right. It doesn't pay the heat bills. It doesn't fix the roof. It doesn't get the new boiler for the Verona school. It does specific things. We still need to do all those other things, or the rest is pointless.
Correct. And so in the absence of having a renewal of this millage, then we have to look at staff reductions, we have to look at concessions, and those are the kinds of things that really weaken the district. So we want to make sure that we continue strong and that we're able to actually actualize all the benefits that the grant will allow us to achieve.
What have we done so far with that first installment of that $51 million?
So we've had some amazing progress with that grant. One of the things that we were able to do is add some additional jobs to the Battle Creek area. And what that did for us is provide support for students. So we hired over 40 literacy tutors that are in our classrooms, in our early elementary schools, to provide additional one-to-one support for our students. We've added Bearcat coaches that are serving as mentors for our students. We've also adopted a new math curriculum that's aimed at increasing math achievement for the students across the district. Teachers have access to more art, music, and athletic supplies. Our new band hadn't received uniforms in over 10 years, and so they were given some resources to adopt new uniforms so that those students could feel better about being out on the field on a regular basis. And that's just a few of the things that we've done, and many more.
That's a lot right there. That's a lot. That is great. And I'm encouraged to hear, music and art support, because often that's the thing that gets on the chopping block when, push comes to shove on the budget. And I went to see a musical in Marshall last night, the dress rehearsal of The Little Mermaid. And it was really fantastic. But those kids have had great support for quite a while. They've got a brand new auditorium there that the community built for them. They've had support of civic organizations like the Marshall Civic Players and the Frank Center for the Arts so that they could learn from a young age. And so I see that as a possibility of going in the right direction here in Battle Creek, especially with this grant.
Right. And it's a multifaceted grant that's really aimed at retaining and recruiting high-quality staff and making sure that our students have everything they need to succeed.
What about buildings, just briefly? Where are we at with buildings and like the Fremont Elementary building? Is that thing going to sell, or is that still in limbo? Where are we with that?
So right now we're on hold with the Fremont, and so the reason that we have done that is that we are very optimistic that given all of the supports that we're putting in place, that we'll be able to bring back some of the families that have decided to choice out of our district. And we're creating new programs like within the next 1 to 2 years, we will be opening a middle school STEM program. And so we're looking at all of our facilities to ensure that we have the capacity to increase if we need to.
Great. Let's recap the millage one more time. What are we asking for? Why are we asking for it? What does it do, Dean?
Great. So again, we're asking for folks to come out and vote. It's very, very important on May 8th for a renewal of the millage for the non-homestead operating millage, which pays for salaries and supplies, equipment, and that sort of thing, and a renewal of the sinking fund millage, which pays for building repairs and maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. The millage will raise about $6.4 million a year for the operating side and about $1.2 million a year for the building maintenance side. So it's a great investment. It's also an imperative. Again, if we hope to get state per pupil funding, the state has set as a conditioned passage of a non-homestead operating fund millage. And more importantly, it's an investment into our kids' future over the next 10 years.
Yep, and the kids see that, and the kids, they get fired up about learning and going to school.
Do. Absolutely. If we're cheering them on, then they'll want to do better. Success breeds success.
That's great. And, we talk a lot in this community, too, about preserving downtown buildings and finding a reuse for them and that sort of thing. We've got some great old school buildings, too, which makes it a challenge for you to run those and keep them up. But, we mentioned Verona was more than 100 years old. Northwestern Middle School, No Spring Chicken. Wait a minute. It was built the year I was born. Yeah, no spring chicken. But, you need a boiler there and heating and air conditioning. And, another part of this, too, is when you take these funds from the sinking fund and you make these improvements, in today's day and age, you're getting more efficient use, too. So you're going to get a boiler that saves the taxpayers. Probably will pay for itself in 5 years.
And another example of that is the replacement of lighting in our schools, some of which were built in 1930.
Mm-hmm.
That's Ann J. Kellogg. And so to replace the lighting to save on electricity also provides us with an opportunity to be more fiscally responsible. So there's lots of opportunities to invest in the schools while also recouping some savings to our taxpayers at the same time.
Yeah, and it's hard to teach your kids about environmental responsibility when you're, still burning gas lamps overhead, and so they actually see. All right, I exaggerate a little, but still, you get the point. You want to walk the walk wherever you can, and it sounds to me like with this grant and with the leadership we've got in the school system, and hopefully with the support of the taxpayers, we're moving in a great direction.
I encourage everybody to continue to believe in the change.
Get out there on May 8th and cast your vote. And Dean, Kim, thanks for joining us today on WBCK.